whenever you look at anything that goes viral, like memes or photos or videos, and it's like nobody knows why. It's like sometimes somebody will tweet something, and for some reason, other people are like, "That's funny. Let's like put this out to the
Yeah.
world," and it becomes like a standard like meme, and you're like, "How did that ever happen?" It's like there's no explanation to any of it.
I sometimes
Yeah.
I wonder about like I don't know a human civilization like 500 years from now. Now, let's say like everything goes to shit and the world I don't know we're back to sticks and stones
Wow,
and
but
huts and all
then
this
this is
kind of
very
stuff.
depressing.
Yeah, yeah.
Is everything okay?
I just try to be realistic here, you know. But I wonder, it's like just imagine you come across like this old dusty hard drive from like 2022, and you take and I don't know, you somehow look into it, and it's just like Harambe, or like, or like,
That's what the aliens have.
yeah.
They're like, wow, this was a weird civilization here.
It's like, who were these people?
But that's the interesting thing, though. Is like we can see like cave art and stuff like that, but no one's going to be able to get into any of the hard drives. So it's basically going to be a whole generation with nothing. So I feel like maybe we should like print out a whole bunch of memes on like archive so we can like
Well, maybe instead of
Yeah.
a wedding museum, we can have a meme museum in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
It's like this meme like died in 2018. It's like
Yeah.
2003 to 2018. It's like never been used again.
Imagine just a bunch of kids just going to a museum in like 2500, and they just see like it's like, and if you look here, kids, this meme was done by J underscore Schlapp at on Twitter in 2020, and they're just like, oh my god, like,
It's like,
they're trying to like dissect the art of that meme. And
yeah, like English teachers go in and they're like,
Yeah.
yes, like the yellow really speaks on how they felt through like while they were making this beautiful meme.
oh man.
But
that is it. But it is an interesting thought to think what we're actually leaving the next generations. It's like yeah, it's not. I mean, before us there was like such sophisticated art, and now we're like largely what entertains us is not to that level.
Well,
Yeah.
that's actually an interesting point because I've started to see a bunch of memes about like art in the 16, 17, 1800s, and it's these like beautiful paintings and just like intricate, beautiful
like the
art pieces.
statue of David.
And that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're just like art in the 21st century, and it's like some dude standing over a blank canvas and like spinning a bucket of paint. It just splatters everywhere. And I'm just like, wow, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I actually wonder why. Like, I wonder if there's an explanation to like why, like, art is such a again, art is so subjective. But it's like everybody can look at like the Statue of David and be like, this is a masterpiece. But it's like so many people
Yeah.
look in like modern art, and you're like, that's three circles. It's like how. What? Why? How? Like,
How did we
what's
get here?
what's the whole thing here? I would actually love to ask you. What are your thoughts on modern art?
So, so I think the thing about modern art is that it has to move someone. And so I actually had a really interesting, or I had a debate with my dad about this because there's not. Have you heard of Tracy Emin?
That name sounds familiar.
She's, yeah, she's an English
Okay.
artist, and she basically her most famous piece was her unmade bed. And so it was in this art gallery, and it was basically her bed that she took from her house, put it in the art gallery, and it's her unmade bed. And basically, her art is about femininity and how like versus the patriarchy and like various things. And there's a lot of like very like deep kind of like themes to her work. But my dad is like, she just put an unmade bed in a gallery. How is this art? And and basically, so the response to that is that for some people who have experienced what she experiences or has experienced, and it's very moving. For my dad, who is like, you know, older white dude who like no feminine side to him, it's like what is this like crap? And so I think that's the thing, is that art is so subjective to different people that some people are moved by things that others of us can't even comprehend. And so I find it so fascinating how and sometimes when you stand in front of a piece of art that you don't think is going to move you, it can move you in a way that you don't expect. And so yeah, I feel like it's really is like understanding different humans and how they view things. And I think that's the thing about like if you look at Picasso's progression of how he painted a portrait, not that I'm a massive Picasso fan, but it's just interesting how like he saw things so differently as he grew older. And it's almost that we can like see through those people's eyes when they view the world in a different way.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
I remember when I was younger, my dad took me. What?
Yeah. No, Mike is correct.
It spun back.
Oh, never
Yeah.
mind.
Anyway, anyway, when I was younger, my dad and I went to Florida. We actually went to see a hockey game, but there's a Salvatore Dali museum there, and what I found like at that point in my life, I had absolutely zero appreciation for art whatsoever. Like the
Yeah.
last thing I wanted to do was walk through a museum and stare at some paintings. Like that to me was the most boring thing ever.
Yeah.
But there was some like that changed everything to me because it was really interesting. Like a lot of his paintings you would look at from like 15 feet away and they would look like one thing. Then you move 5 feet forward and they look like something completely different. And then you move 5 feet forward again and they look again like something completely different. And like what you're saying there about how like depending on your perspective and depending on like honestly the way that you've lived your life and the things you've experienced like can shape the way that you view art. I think even in a sense like that where he wanted people to view his paintings in different ways. I think it's just like it's just really fascinating how one piece can speak to people in a different way, and also how like you as an artist can even sometimes make people see a painting in a different way. Yeah.
Totally. And sometimes people's art has a different meaning for people than the artist ever intended,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
which is also, yeah, which is also so fascinating. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is you can call it art as long as it moves someone somewhere. Or even if someone like someone felt moved enough to create it, then it is art. It's just like, yeah. And also going back to like experiencing it in a museum. I feel like we look at so much on screens that sometimes like I remember like I've never liked not never liked but never been felt moved by any of Van Gogh's work at all. Like I'm like I've people who and it's always fascinating me how much people have loved it and I've just kind of been like yeah it doesn't do anything for me. And then I think it was maybe 3 years ago I saw there's a self-portrait a blue one of him uh I can't really describe more than that. It's a blue
Yep.
self-portrait of him, and I saw it in a museum, and like I stood in front of it, and it like almost made me want to cry, and I like couldn't explain why. It was just like so moving, like it was such a his expression in it was so sad, and obviously knowing that like how he felt and his mental health and stuff, and it was just like in that instant, like I suddenly felt like this huge emotional rush inside me, and I remember walking away from it thinking like I've spent the last like 20 years being like completely uninspired, completely moved by any of his work and just being like, yeah, I don't get it. And then this piece was just like, for some reason, I was just like totally blown away by it. And so, yeah, and I think that's the other thing is sometimes you have to experience art in person to like, and so, and then sometimes you're just in a certain place, you're feeling a certain way one day that this piece of art is just like, whoa,